Hey guys, welcome back. So the question is, can hypnosis help you stop drinking? And the short answer is yes. That is, of course, if you really want to stop drinking. You have to want to stop. Hypnosis cannot make you do anything that you do not want to do. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you're thinking maybe, you want your husband or your wife, son, daughter, whatever, you'd like them to quit drinking, quit using whatever, and you're thinking that maybe hypnosis can help them, it's not going to work if they actually do not want to quit, right? So if you're doing this for somebody else, it's probably not going to help you. Again, you have to want to quit. And then yes, hypnosis can be effective in doing that. Is that 100%? Absolutely not. So I'm going to use Ron White as an example of how hypnosis can work for somebody. Somewhere on the YouTube verse, there is a video of Ron White. I think Joe Rogan on his podcast and maybe another podcast out there. Ron White, the comedian, talks about how he got sober using hypnotherapy and ayahuasca. I'm not going to mention ayahuasca really. We're just going to focus on the hypnotherapy aspect of his story. And so a short version is this basically, is that Ron White was a fall down drunk. Was an every night kind of drinker. It was basically, he was living his alcoholic personality. His stage persona had become himself. He was drinking every night. He wanted to stop, and he heard that ayahuasca could help him, but the retreat place in Peru or wherever it was that he wanted to go, they wouldn't accept him unless he was 14 days sober because they didn't want him detoxing there on site. And he thought, there's no way I could do that. I can't go without 14 days. I can't go 14 days without drinking. And so he went to a hypnotherapist, and after the second session, he stopped drinking forever, as far as I know. He never drank again. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into a story and how that worked for him, or how, I believe it worked for him. It's different for everybody. But let's first dispel some silly rumors about hypnotherapy and hypnosis, right? So usually when people think of hypnotherapy or hypnosis, and they think of it in a negative light, they're usually thinking of two things. And the first one, they're thinking of a mysterious character wearing a cape and a little pencil-thin mustache, and he puts you into trance and makes you do something silly or crazy or unknowing, to yourself. And that's not true. That's not hypnotherapy. That's Scooby-Doo. That's right. That's what that is. That's, where again, right, a magician type character and, tells Shaggy you're getting very sleepy, and all of a sudden Shaggy becomes a zombie and he's got swirly eyes, and, that's not reality. That doesn't actually happen. And the second thing some people think about when they think of hypnosis, they think of the stage hypnotist, right? They think of the guy who gets on stage and tells somebody to get up on stage, and then makes them look like a complete idiot in front of everybody, kind of like turning somebody into an unwilling participant in their own shame, right? While this example is an example of somebody actually in a trance, the thing is that hypnotherapy or hypnosis cannot make you do anything that you don't want to do, like I've mentioned earlier, right? So meaning that when you see somebody go on stage and you see them bark like a dog or act like a chicken, it's because they want to do that. It's because they're willing to do that, right? So meaning if you were put in a trance, which is a real thing, and I'll get to that later, and somebody said, hey, cluck like a chicken, and if that's something that you wouldn't regularly do, you would automatically come out of trance because you are fully conscious. And that's another myth, right? That when you're in a trance, that you are somehow unconscious, right? No, you are fully conscious. And so again, and even going back to the stage hypnotist, that is entertainment. What I mean by that is that the stage hypnotist is a seasoned entertainer. What he most likely did, or actually this is exactly what he did. He came on stage, and maybe you've seen this on television, maybe you saw this in person, but he came out, and the first thing that a stage hypnotist does is perform a suggestibility test on the entire audience. Now, suggestibility basically just means how deep into trance a person is willing to go. And again, when I say willing to go, I'll explain that a little bit later. So he comes out and he usually does a test, and I'll give you an example. It's called the bucket test, right? He tells everybody, all right, everybody, I want you to clear your mind, just relax, and I want you to hold out your hands, both arms, kind of in front of you. Here's an example like this, right? Hold out both your arms in front of you, and everybody close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that in each hand, you are holding a red bucket. That's right, 2 buckets. One in the right, one in the left. All of a sudden, in your right hand, in the right bucket, somebody begins to pour water into that bucket very slowly, very slowly. And in your left hand, in the left bucket, somebody comes up and ties 5 helium balloons to the bucket, right? And what the hypnotist is doing, he's watching everyone very closely. Now, if he sees somebody like doing this, kind of, they're not doing anything at all, the hypnotist automatically puts that person out of his purview. He's not even looking at that person. Now, if he sees somebody and they're like, they're struggling like that, that means they are willingly doing that, right? So he's keeping an eye on those people. Now he tells everybody, open your eyes and look around, look at yourself. And, people start laughing, right? Because you're going to see some people that are just, they got one arm down and one arm all the way up. And then he basically says, all right, who wants to get up on stage with me? And if somebody out there who we saw that was very suggestible raised their hand, he's going to calm them. If nobody really raises their hands, then he's going to call on the most suggestible person that he remembers. And that person's going to get up. And again, he picked them because they are so suggestible. And also, they're not afraid of looking silly, right? And so that's what they want. And that's what you see when you see those stage hypnotists show, right? And so again, you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. Kind of like that movie Office Space. I don't know if you ever saw it. It came out in the 90s. It is a cult classic, and I highly recommend it. It's very funny. It was directed by Mike Judge. He created Beavis and Butthead. And the movie is just about a guy who hates his job. And in the beginning of the movie, he goes to a hypnotherapist, and the hypnotherapist, basically tells him, man, hey, you're happy. You're doing great. You only do what you want to do, and your life is great from here on out. And all of a sudden, he finds himself not afraid to treat his job that like what it is to him is a crappy job, and he treats it like a crappy job. He starts showing up late, if at all. And of course, he gets rewarded because he just doesn't care anymore. And so again, that's because he wanted to do those things. All right. So that in a nutshell is hypnosis. Okay. When I say trance, all I'm referring to is 2 levels of consciousness, or experiencing 2 different levels of brain wave patterns. Okay. And those 2 are the alpha level brain waves, alpha level consciousness, and theta level brain waves, or theta level consciousness. Okay. So right now I'm talking to you and you're listening to me. We're in what they call the beta stage of consciousness, or the beta level brain waves. And what that basically is just being very aware of the outside world, right? You're sitting here and hopefully you're paying attention to what I'm saying, but also, somebody calls you from the other room and you say, what? And, you get a text and you check it. This is the beta level where basically you are, very aware of everything, right? I'm talking about the first level, the alpha level brainwaves, the alpha level conscious level of consciousness, and that is a lot like daydreaming or deep meditation. And a really good example of this is that, I don't know if you drive, but let's say you're driving, you're on the highway or the freeway, and you're just daydreaming. Maybe you're thinking about next weekend and the plans you have, and you're just really, really deep in thought. Then all of a sudden you realize you're driving, and that you haven't been paying attention, and that you missed your exit by like 3 exits. Okay, that's an example of alpha level brainwave patterns, or alpha level consciousness. Okay, and that's the first level of trance. The second is theta, and that is a lot like your first stages of dreaming, right? Like maybe you're on the couch and you're kind of drifting off to sleep, and you're having this really vivid dream. Maybe you're walking down the street and then you trip, and then in real life you jerk, right? That is theta level brainwave patterns. That's theta level. And again, it's a lot like dreaming. So those 2 states of consciousness are what I am referring to when I mention trance, right? And hypnosis will bring you into these 2 levels. And in these 2 levels of consciousness, you are what they call highly suggestible. What that means is this. Let's say, for example, you think you're a bad person. And let's also just assume that that's actually not true. Okay. So if you and I were talking and maybe you tell me, hey, I volunteer, I do this and I do that, but I'm just not a very good person. I'm a bad person, right? And I say, well, you're a volunteer, and clearly that means that you're doing this for the good of other people. So therefore you are not a bad person, right? And you could sit there and listening to me, right? And you're thinking, okay, well, on that end, sure, maybe that makes me a good person, but I also do this and I do X and I do Y and I do Z. That means that, that outweighs the good. That means I'm mostly bad, right? So that's obviously not very helpful in life. And the reason is this, because most of the things that you think about yourself aren't necessarily true. Some of them aren't true at all. Okay. And there is a book, and I will talk about this maybe in my next video. My favorite book in recovery. I'd read it years ago, but I've read it this past year. It's called The Four Agreements, and I'm sure you've actually heard about it. But the truth is that everybody makes agreements with themselves. And a lot of these agreements that we make with ourselves happen before our ability to reason. And they're not actually true. And again, for example, I'll tell you one. I was told when I was younger that, quite a few times that I was a piece of shit. And I grew up and I actually believed that. And I never actually challenged it. And so, again, I talk to people and I'd mention that. They say, oh, you're not a piece of shit, Brian. You're, you can be a jerk sometimes, but, you're not a piece of shit. And I just didn't believe them, right? Because I had this counter thought that always came in. I would refuse to believe that I wasn't a piece of shit. And so in hypnotherapy, when you are in a state of trance, you have a very, very narrowed focus. I mean, perfect focus on one thing, okay? The hypnotherapist will take you to this place, this trance level of consciousness, and it will feed you the truth, okay? It will feed you something that is truth, something that is believable, but that is probably counter to a negative thought you have about yourself. So for example, if you are in a deep state of theta, like really, really deep level of trance, and I tell you, you are the kind of person who volunteers their time voluntarily, which means that you are a good person, because a good person is someone that does things for others without expecting anything in return. I would tell you that, and you would hear it, you would receive it, and you would accept it, okay? Now, what happens in life too is that these beliefs that we have about ourselves that are not true, they are basically hardwired in your brain, right? And I've talked about this in another video, the alcoholic personality method, that these beliefs or these habits that you have, and sometimes the negative thought, actually negative thinking is a bad habit, but it's these wiring in your brain, these synapses that had formed when you were younger, when you heard, for example, like myself, when I heard that I was a piece of shit. I took that thought and I said, oh, that must be true. Something was made in my brain. And then I spent most of my life triggering that part of my brain. And it usually came out in guilty feelings. I'd lash out at people. Again, anything that would remind me of that thought, even though I wasn't consciously thinking it was there, because it was hardwired to my brain. Hypnosis makes new wiring, right? So, for example, if you think that you're a bad person and you go into trance and a hypnotherapist, a good one, tells you, no, you're a very good person. Well, he would never say no, or she would never say no. They'd say, you're a good person. That's new structures in your brain. And the point is that the more you go up and down and travel that new pathway, the stronger it becomes. And the less you use the other pathway, the one that thinks you're a bad person, it eventually fades away. Okay, so now that I've said all this, can you start to kind of understand how hypnosis can work for you to stop you from drinking? All right, so let's get back to Ron White. Okay, Ron White is a comedian known for his Blue comedy troupe, right? And I think Jeff Foxworthy is one of them. And, he has made millions of dollars, I'm sure, over the course of his career. And his stage persona is this really drunken guy, right? Now, Ron White in real life was a very drunken guy. He drank a lot. And the reason is because on stage, he was basically playing out his alcoholic personality. And what happened is over the years of being this character and getting known as this character, when he went out into public, Maybe he went to a bar, he went out later, and his fans met him. They wanted him to be that character. And so that his stage persona was carrying off the stage now, right? Of course, his stage persona, which is his alcoholic personality, was already a part of him. But now it was all of a sudden in his life, it's playing this outsized role to where it's making him a millionaire, it's making him loved, but it's becoming a burden. And to where the point that he believes that this alcoholic personality of his believes that it's actually him, that it's the totality of himself. So Ron gets to the point in his life where he was very afraid about his future, thought he was going to die young, and really actually wanted to quit, didn't want to drink anymore. And again, and I mentioned this before in the beginning of the video, he wanted help. And if you reach out for help, that means that you probably really do want to quit. Right? If you actually got to the point where like, I can't do this on my own, because like myself and many of you out there, it was my perception that I could not stop drinking. It was my perception of it. Now, of course, alcohol use disorder or alcoholism is a very tricky thing, right? It's not just about brainwave patterns. For a lot of people, it's a physical addiction, right? And of course, you're talking about automatic personality changes, automatic changes. But anyway, Ron became this thing, right? He became his alcoholic personality, did not believe that he could quit on his own, perceived that he could not. So he decided he was going to do ayahuasca. He calls up this place in Peru or wherever, somewhere along the Amazon. And, it was a retreat and they did ayahuasca, and he calls them and says, hey, I want to stop drinking. And they're like, how much do you drink? He tells them, and they're like, whoa, you drink too much. We can't have you coming out here. We need you to be sober for at least 14 days before you can come here, because we don't need you detoxing, man. We don't need that here. And so he thinks, damn, I don't think I could do that. 14 days is too much, right? Because he doesn't believe that he could stay sober for 14 entire days. So a friend tells him, hey, man, I got this hypnotherapist to help me quit drinking. You should go see him. He goes there and tells this long, very, funny story about this hypnotherapist. And after the second time seeing this guy, he stopped drinking for good. Right? He eventually did go to the retreat. He did ayahuasca, but of course this all started with hypnotherapy. And the question is that how could a person that was like, by all definitions, a fall down drunk, right? Literally, like his personality was a fall down drunk. A person who drinks every day, drinks that much. How is this person able to just go sit down and have somebody put him in a trance and then all of a sudden they stop drinking? And the answer is very simple, is because they changed his perception about his ability to stop. It changed his perception that he needed alcohol to be loved, that he needed alcohol to not feel uncomfortable, that he needed alcohol for all these things. Changed his perception about all of that, right? It changed the paradigm of his life. And so, can this happen for you? Well, if it happened for Ron, if it happened for me, then yeah, it could probably happen to you. Now, there are people out there that say, oh man, I can't be hypnotized, man. I'm unhypnotizable. And that's actually not true, because your level of trance basically depends on your willingness to do it. That's really it. If you're able to be honest with yourself at all, then you can be put in a trance. In fact, the only people that have been known to not be able to be put into trance are people with an IQ of below like 85. So if you're listening to me and you have an IQ of below 85, then I'm sorry, I cannot help you. But if you have an IQ, if you're somewhat reasonably intelligent, then yes, you can be helped this way. Again, like I said, though, it's not 100%. Will not happen for everybody, and you have to want it. If you were to be like, all right, cool, I want this to happen for me, and I just went to some, you just went to some hypnotherapist, right? Maybe one that wasn't also, a drinker himself. And again, I don't know anything about the hypnotherapist that Ron White went to. I can't speak for him. Obviously, he was effective though, right? But again, he got Ron into a very peaceful state of consciousness. He got him to a place where he had zero stress at all, when he was completely relaxed. Okay, and this is very important, because when your body is that relaxed, and when your mind is that relaxed, it is able to receive. It is basically at a place of peace. It's exactly where your body wants to be. Your body always should be that peaceful. None of us are. I'm not, right? I try to. I meditate twice a day. I do self-hypnosis all the time. It's very hard to be at that place. But when so anyways, the hypnotherapist got Ron to that place and would get you to that place. And it would tell you things that are the truth. Of course, counter to your negative beliefs. Again, and if it was a decent hypnotherapist, he'd get to know you a little bit, or she would get to know you a little bit and talk to you a little bit and realize that, these things that you believe about yourself are not true. And they will help you verbalize it, right? They will help you see that that's not the truth. And they will take a very powerful suggestion, a very simple and very singular belief, suggestion for you. And then once they got you to that place, they would tell it to you at the perfect moment. And they would repeat it over and over and over again. And again, for Ron and for you, it would be your life as a non-drinker is far more beautiful, far more fulfilling than it ever was when you were drinking. Your body is completely healthy. It is functioning perfectly in this moment. You are now complete. You only want what is best for you. They say something like that. And what your mind would do is take that as the truth, and it's building new wiring. And the more you do that, the more you think that thought over and over and over and over again, the more it becomes reality, because perception is reality. And again, if you were to use hypnosis and the alcoholic personality method together, I believe, and I've seen this happen, you would stop drinking very quickly, right? With most hypnotherapists or most hypnosis, it could take you a while. Like even Ron, it took him a couple of weeks, a couple of sessions to do it. I've designed this, a personal drinker, my own method, my own set of hypnoses. I've designed them to stop drinking right away, to use with the alcoholic personality method. Okay, so if this is something that you're looking at doing, if you're looking for hypnosis, you're looking for help, actually, you really want to stop, I think I can help you do that. And you just reach out to me. Again, like I said, I've developed a technique and a series of hypnoses, and I've made them incredibly affordable, and I made them to work very quickly, right? My point is to not have you come see me over and over and over again. It's not the point here. The point is to see me maybe once, in fact, maybe not even at all. So just check with me. And again, it's extremely affordable, and it's extremely effective, and it will help you change your perception about yourself completely. Because I can guarantee you, if you are having trouble right now quitting drinking, it's because certain beliefs that you have about yourself. You believe that you're not worthy of sobriety. You believe that you can't have fun without drinking. You believe all these things. They're not true. It's perception. And again, it's being caught within your alcoholic personality. So I think I can help you do that. Again, if not, you really, honestly, even just going to any hypnotherapist, I think is very helpful. And again, I have a video, the alcoholic personality method, how to use it. It's there. It's, you can check it out. I'll put a link to it below. It's been helping a lot of people, and I get a lot of really, really great feedback from it. And so, yeah, that's the video. So, can hypnosis help you stop drinking? Sure, absolutely. If you really want to quit, it can absolutely help you, and very fast too, as well. So I think in my next video, I think I'm going to talk about the 4 agreements. I don't know let me know if you've read it out there, if this is something you want to hear. That book for me in recovery is just so incredibly powerful. So I think I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, I'd like to do that. Okay, so anyway, so if you've heard me babble on, sorry. If you like the video, like it, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and share it if this is something that you think could help somebody else. But other than that, hey guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you the next time.